Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching this. This is Chris Carlin from Mastering Money Now and Vista Financial Group. Just doing a sound check. For those who are watching live, we will be kicking off in about 10 minutes. For those who are watching the recording, just make sure you fast forward to the 10-minute mark to make sure that is to when the content is actually going to start. In the meantime, make sure you follow us on our social media channels. The links are below. Otherwise, I look forward to speaking to you very soon on this great topic. I'm so looking forward to this with my good friend and the top experts in Victoria about construction and anything with the build process, Rebecca Hall. That will be starting in 10 minutes. Again, follow us on social media. Give us a like, comment if you are watching this live, and we'll see you all in 10 minutes. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching this. It is Chris Carlin from Master Money Now and Vista Financial Group. Very excited to be joined with my special guest, Rebecca Hall, about this webinar, Is It Safe to Build a House in 2023? We are based in Geelong in Victoria, so it will be slightly tilted towards what's happening in Victoria, but I think it can be applied across Australia as well. But I think you're going to get a lot out of it. And I'm very much looking forward to this discussion, Rebecca. But I have to ask, first and foremost, we wait for a few people to join. How are you going with another Victorian winter?
It's always a good adjustment, but you know what's coming, so you prepare well. So
That is true. That is true. Have you got any? Do you do a winter defrosting or anything like that?
No.
No. Okay, not going to Queensland, or I'm off to Perth in about a week's time, so I'm very much looking forward to that. So, although it's not much warmer in Perth than it is in Victoria, unfortunately, so may have to head up north. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here. If you are watching live, make sure you give us a like, give us a comment, let us know that you are watching. We're just waiting a couple of minutes for a few more people to join the stream. And if you are watching us on the recording, which I know is probably about 90% of you, make sure, give us a like, let us know what you're thinking and your thoughts. And if you've got any questions either now or afterwards, let us know and be more than happy to respond to those. And again, make sure you follow us on your favorite social media channels as well. So let's go through a little bit of legal stuff as per what we usually do. It's a friendly reminder that I'm a licensed financial planner. Rebecca Hall is a build advocate, but this information is what's known as general advice, i.e. what you can do. If you want a more personal advice, i.e. what you should do, make sure you engage with a financial planner, mortgage broker, or build advocate in regards to your specific options. A little bit about me, if you haven't met me before. I used to be the founder, financial planner, and mortgage broker at Master Your Money Now. Did that for 5 years, and recently we were acquired by Vista Financial Group. With a young family, it was very hard to run the business and run everything. So you can see I'm married to Natalie. I've got 2 little girls, Charlotte and Chelsea. So we were acquired by Vista Financial Group recently, and which means I get to do the fun stuff, which is be a financial planner and also run these webinars as my role of head of education. So Master Your Money Now have developed a really good niche, particularly for everyday millennial nurses and teachers. We're based in Geelong. We've got clients Australia-wide, and quite a few of those as well. Vista Financial Group, very quickly, has been in the industry for over 20 years now, located on the other side of Melbourne in a place called Beaumaris. Beautiful office and location there right near the beach. It's got a team of 15 and are authorised financial planners and mortgage brokers. And if you want to find out more about them, the links are in the comments section as well. Rebecca, who is Rebecca Hall?
I'm build advocate at Ninedots Build Advocates, also local to Geelong. Mm-hmm. Married to my husband Steve, and we have 3 children, Sienna, Phoenix and Aston. Mm-hmm. So we've been in Geelong. I went to Deakin, so studied in Geelong, but been in Geelong for about 12 years now, so very much home.
Where were you before Geelong?
Melbourne, so yes. Greensborough.
Yep. Fantastic part of the world, so fantastic stuff. And tell me more about Ninedots.
So it's basically a concept we put together about 11 years ago, just piecing together different support elements for people who are building a new home. Mm-hmm. Just wanted to try and ensure that people who were building didn't fall into sort of any of the stressful gaps that often occur, and just to make sure that there was cost-effective support available for people when they do go through that process. Yeah,
fantastic. And I know that Ninedots has got a little bit of a story behind it as well. Tell us a little bit more about why did you choose the name Ninedots?
So there's a puzzle that a lot of people are familiar with, more so online. It's just about promoting, I guess, creative thinking and thinking outside the square to find solutions. So Build Advocate being that it is quite a new concept, it's just about that creative solution of building a new home and just tapping into a unique and new sort of support service that's available to get a good outcome.
Yeah, so that puzzle is, if you've got 9 dots, how do you connect all the dots with 3 lines? And you've got to actually go outside of the square to connect the 3 dots, which I thought was very, very clever, both that puzzle, but also using that name for what you do.
Yeah.
So, that's awesome. So now I think the big question that everyone will have is, what is now I got this name wrong. I thought it was builder's advocate, but you're not a builder's advocate, you're a build advocate. So I've heard of a buyer's advocate. I think most people have heard of a buyer's advocate, but not a build advocate. So what does a build advocate do?
Yeah, so you're right. It's very similar to a buyer's advocate, except the focus is on new homes and being that support to people going through that process. Similar, another way to sort of understand it is from the same structure as a mortgage broker, where you may go to a mortgage broker for support in finding the right loan that's a good fit for you. Build advocate, for us, it's about going to someone for support and expertise in the industry to help find the ideal fit builder for you when going through the process.
And how do you go through that process? So if you've got a panel of builders that you work with, and how do you select the right build advocate for you? The builder for your clients.
Yeah, the right builder for us is very different to the right builder for the client. It is very much about the client and their particular project. So the process, it's quite detailed because it's something we've sort of pieced together from the start, but it all begins with working with a client, getting a deep understanding of what their brief is, what they're trying to achieve. Through that initial process, you get an understanding of where their knowledge gaps are. So you fill in those, gaps to start with, and then work with the client to further develop what they're looking for. From there, just through our other services such as quote review, contract review, and doing building inspections, we get exposed to quite a few builders and their quality and their processes. So the process of finding a builder is very much aligned to that particular client's brief. We do due diligence on the builder themselves in regards to their capacity, the quality aspect. Obviously, price plays a role in it.
Yes.
During that sort of briefing process with the client, we'll always ask them, is there any particular builder you'd like us to explore, or any builders that you just, for whatever reason, don't want to look at? We'll always start there, because I feel if we don't address, for whatever reason, a client might have a shortlisted builder. If we don't look at them for any particular reason, or at least rule them out as an option, or shortlist them, in the back of the client's mind, there's always going to be, but what about that particular builder? So we always start there, exploring where the client wants to explore, but primarily we tap into our knowledge base in regards to, we're on the ground every day working with a whole heap of builders. The sourcing a builder comes through that knowledge bank.
And it's such a great service because, also we're dealing with such a large asset and so many intricacies of the build process. And to try and do that all yourself, which probably 95% of people do, is really challenging. And we were talking just before we went on air, like the power of marketing and brand, and like people have got this perception of different builders based upon how good their marketing is or whether they're on the TV and things like that. But when you look under the hood, the reality can be completely different. So having someone that looks at all the options is definitely a very good value add, and just have someone else in your corner during that process is very crucial, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what? I want to talk about what's happening right now, because obviously it's a very interesting time in the construction industry. But let's take a little bit of step back first. What has happened in the last few years, especially from your perspective? Because obviously things were normal, and then COVID hits and building stopped, and then the stimulus came in, and then building went crazy, and now we're in this situation where builders are collapsing. What has happened over the last 5 years? What's the journey been for that? What's happened in the building industry over the last 5 years?
You've pretty much summarised it in that journey in itself. If I had to sum it up in one word, it would be exhaustion. Exhaustion for clients, support personnel like myself, and the builders. It's just been turbulent. People haven't known what's coming next. If you go back to obviously COVID, where things slowed down on site, builders were getting concerned, trades were getting concerned about workflow. Then in comes the home builder grant. People who were not even considering building all of a sudden were jumping in and wanting to build because of the incentives at play. The impact of that was a lot of rushing and pressure, I guess, from builders wanting to capture that opportunity of, new leads and new clients coming through. Then there was pressure of timing. You had to get, things started within a certain amount of time frame. Then there was, aspects where people missed the cutoff for the application date. So all of a sudden, people who had no intentions of building, they were motivated to now start that process. They start moving in that direction. Then all of a sudden, loopholes had it that they weren't actually getting the grant. So basically where we've got to now is we've still got a lot of builders. They've got work in the pipeline, but on the front end, there's a lot of slowdown in regards to new sales. But a big impact of it has been in regards to supply and labour shortages. So builds are taking longer. With that demand getting sort of put in early, obviously the price point of things have gone up as well, and that's sort of what's led to the labour shortage because there's so many people that were building from the grant.
So was the biggest detriment to what's happening right now, was it more to do with the stimulus or more to do with supply chain issues? It was also a big struggle to get material into Australia and others. I've got my brother-in-law's a builder in New Zealand and their situation is significantly worse than Australia. Was it just like, what was the bigger issue? Was it too much demand or the supply breaking down? Was it a bit of both?
I think it's the demand that had that impact on supply. I think we were too focused on what was right in front of us, which was the opportunity of the grant. So everyone jumped on that without enough time to sort of forward think the ongoing impact that's going to have, which was the supply issue. So that's what we're left with now.
Yeah, that's a valid point because obviously all that money was put in not just to this but also other areas as well. And now we kind of feel like that what's happening right now is probably what we would have expected when COVID first hit. If that stimulus wasn't there, it kind of feels like a delayed reaction, so to speak.
Absolutely. And for us, obviously, helping people, we were equally as excited when the opportunity was there for clients, with the grant in play. It meant so many people that were potentially going to have to wait another 6 to 12 months to get into the market, all of a sudden could take those steps forward that they wanted. But being that we've been there from that sort of the start point right through to now, I personally feel like the opportunity was really great and there was a lot of benefit had, but I feel like now people are paying for that.
Okay.
New people that are coming into the market because prices have gone up. So in effect, the grant is great, but I just think it's so personal. Some people, were winners in the whole grants, and then while others suffered from it. So it's
which is a good segue because you talk about winners, and you'd think with everything that had happened, certainly prior to 2023, more stimulus, more clients, that builders would have been the big winners out of all this. But now we're seeing in 2023, it seems like every week there's a new builder that is going under into liquidation and that's leaving a lot of clients in the lurch. So why are so many builders going under?
Yeah, so I think it's one of those things too. It really depends. Each organisation is different. They've got their personal reasons, but a bulk of it is because, they've signed these fixed price contracts when the stimulus was there. So they're sort of fixed and locked into certain prices. And then while that impact of, things getting harder for labour and materials, they've got increased prices that they're not in a position to pass on to clients. And I think a big part of it too is because there has been so much change, different builders are handling it differently as well. That's something that we're lucky enough to be exposed to on the back end, just seeing that impact of how builders were working and, their strengths and weaknesses pre-COVID and pre-grant to how they're managing it now. And some of it, the collapse comes down to just management. Some of it comes down to exhaustion, but cash flow. Cash flow is a big thing. Cash
flow is king, as they say. So, and you mentioned a phrase about fixed term contracts, which we'll discuss in a moment, because I think that's a real crucial part of this. But I guess let's go back to the big question and the title of this webinar. Also, we've got a few builders coming over, going under. It's quite a lot happening. Is it safe to build a house in 2023?
It is safe to build. I think it's equally as safe now to build as it is any other time, but you really need to do your planning and research initially. It's definitely not safe to build with any builder or for everyone's circumstances. It's really personal. You really need to take that time to unpack what it is that you're trying to achieve, and then make sure you take the right steps in making sure you're protecting yourself along the way.
You mentioned research and protecting yourself. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, no worries. So from a finance point of view, obviously the way interest rates are, it's really important to have that deep understanding of not only how much a bank is willing to loan you right now, on the other end of it, you need to really understand what the repayments are, and then have a bit more of a buffer in there, with everyone not knowing where interest rates are going. Everyone has a bit of an idea or of where they might go, but the reality is no one really knows right now. So it's just about planning for that, the moments if the interest rates do go up, and how that impacts you personally. And then in regards to looking for a builder, like you touched on before with that a little bit of smoke screen with marketing, go a bit deeper than that. It's not about any particular promotion or signing by a certain date. It's all about the fine print. For example, if you're getting a build quote right now, always ask the builder if you can see a copy of their draft contract, because generally the contract will come so much further down the track, but that contract plays such a big part into the full process of the build with any particular builder. And it's just, one of those steps that are often overlooked.
And it's a really important part, because that when you buy a house, you go to a conveyancer to look through that contract, but with a build, you can send to a mortgage broker, but we're not adept at looking through those contracts and looking at those nuances. That's where someone like yourself can certainly look at that and provide some objectivity and so forth. And just going back to the interest rates, I think that's actually a crucial point, and probably one that's not discussed as much, but for two reasons. One, because when interest rates have gone up, people can say, 2 years ago when we started this process, could borrow $500,000, but then 12 months later when the construction's near completion, that borrowing capacity is reduced to $450, which does impact your borrowing power. And also for a lot of clients, their build has gone from 500, simplistic example, gone from 500 up to 550. So all of a sudden you've got this major shortfall, which clients have had to scramble and borrowed off their mum, the shortfall, to actually be able to finish their house. So that interest rate discussion has been quite interesting, and obviously we're recording this on July the 5th. Australia, the Reserve Bank came out yesterday and did hold interest rates, and I found out you're an ex-mortgage broker as well in part of your time. And I know we're all guessing, but get your crystal ball out. What's your prediction for interest rates?
Fun. I personally feel like they're still going to be heading up. People are celebrating it. Yesterday they were on hold, but the reality is people are still feeling the impact from the rise from last month. So I feel like people are just, really strained in trying to just keep up with what's happening. Each step of the way. So for now, I personally think they will go up again. But even if they didn't, I think we absolutely have to plan for it going up.
Yes.
And just make the right decisions accordingly.
Yeah, I have heard one very popular expert say that interest rate rises are done. I don't share that optimism. I think there is still one to go, but I still think there will still be a rate cut before the end of the year. That's the call I've had since the start of the year. I'm going to hang on to that. So we'll see what happens. If you do have any thoughts, if you're watching this live, or if you do have any questions, make sure that you put them in the comments section in this video. But you mentioned grants as well. Obviously, there was home stimulus, there was first home buyer grants in Victoria. They seem to have wound back a bit. So what are the grants available at the moment? Obviously, it varies state to state, but let's just focus on Victoria for a moment. What are the grants available for Victorians at the moment?
So the first home owners grant of $10,000 is still in play.
Yep.
I've personally, that was a big driver many years ago for a lot of people. It was like that means to the end, the opportunity to either start now or start later was very much sort of determined by what grants were available. $10,000 is a huge amount of money, but I feel you could make even more than that by making the right decisions and doing enough research and going in the right direction with a builder. So the grants are absolutely, that is still there, but it can very easily get lost by going down the wrong path.
That 10,000, is that just regional or is it also metropolitan as well?
New builds.
New builds, yeah, okay. And you're absolutely right. You can find a $10,000 difference between two different builders quite easily, and that grant can go very, very quickly. So no, that's good. Are you aware from other states? I know this is not your area of expertise. In other states, what the grants are or what they seem to be doing?
Not really. We are franchising at the moment. We've just started in South Australia. So no, personally, I don't. But that is something that we're looking to expand on.
Feels like it is coming back. There is, I think New South Wales and I believe South Australia have reduced their stamp duty, increased the buffer for first home buyers in terms of stamp duty. Victoria has kept their limits since 2014, I believe. So, I don't see that changing anytime soon. But there is definitely an interesting space to watch. So, I guess, look, will construction look different going forward?
I think there's definitely been a lot of push for changes. So how slow that takes to come to fruition, I'm not sure. But I definitely do feel that change is coming. I know the focus just in regards to whether it'll be fixed contracts for building or variable. It's hard, obviously, for a builder. They want it to be variable because they don't want to lock themselves in and find this, this occurrence that they're in now where they've agreed to build at a certain price, but then all of a sudden they're exposed to additional costs that they're not in a position to pass on. But at the same token, for people who are saving and trying to build a new home, they do need that level of certainty in regards to how much it's going to cost, because that plays such a big part of whether they would build in the first place or not. Yeah,
so let's take that back a step. So what is the difference between a fixed or a variable contract?
So fixed, so there's different elements to it. So for example, for building, we might be talking fixed site costs. So that means that you're agreeing to a certain figure on your site costs as opposed to them being noted as, say, an allowance only. Being an allowance, it just means when your soil and survey test comes in or your engineering, that can fluctuate. More likely it'll go north. So that's the key difference with site costs, but it's also in regards to all the other elements, whether it's the base price. If the builder has to increase their base price, then that would be
the
variable.
Base price being the actual construction, is that?
Without any additions that they've put on.
Sure, okay, So, because as a customer, we want certainty.
Absolutely.
So generally we want fixed.
Yes.
But the majority of those that have gone under at the moment have been those who've had fixed term contracts. Those who've had variable have been able to pass those costs to the customer and consequently stay in business. So, I get it from the consumer's perspective, absolutely. You don't want a variable contract and have that uncertainty, but we're also and you could argue, are they just passing on, trying to retain profit share and things like that? But at the end of the day, if we're talking about survival, then that's a completely different story, and therefore having a fixed contract from the builder's perspective, it's probably gone a little bit too far the other way, that it's gave them less flexibility and therefore they can't complete the build and therefore have to go under, which is not a good outcome for anyone, is it?
No, so I think something that's not spoken about too often is we are hearing a lot of builders going into liquidation, but on the flip side, where you've got builders who may not have entered fixed price contracts, that's good for them. They're able to pass things on, but in some degree, there's a whole heap of clients that it's good in theory to be able to pass it on, but you've got a lot of clients that genuinely can't afford that. So, in many cases, depending on obviously what they've signed off on in their contract, but they're losing deposits or...
true.
In effect, it's the client going in liquidation to some degree. So that's a huge impact that we're not hearing as much as we are with builders going to liquidation.
Yeah, that's a valid point, because if you're halfway through the build, your cost has gone up 50K, you can't afford that, then what happens then?
Yeah, so that's where the pressure comes on the mortgage broker. So we're finding more for the clients that we've been supporting. It's not necessarily that they get halfway through and there's additional costs.
Yep.
It's more right before they go to site. They're getting exposed to
Yes.
$60,000, $70,000 increased costs. And then, in some circumstances, they've waited for their land to title for over 12 months. They've, emotionally and financially connected to this plan. And then all of a sudden, because the price can go up, if they can't afford it, then that's that plan and that deposit.
Yeah, so you're saying that they bought the block, let's say 2020, it titled in 2021, they've got the contract and prices for 2020 to start in 2022, they get to 22 and the builder goes, oh, sorry, it's gone up 50K, do you want to continue with this?
Yeah.
Yeah, which at least enables the client to be able to just have the land potentially sell that on without going down the build path. But as you rightfully said, deposits would need to be paid on the build. That could potentially get lost as well. So, but at least, dare I say it, losing a deposit, that sucks. But I guess it's better than trying to sell a half-built house, isn't it?
Yeah, so we are lucky enough to not have had that experience of having to support clients sell half-built houses.
Yes.
My role and where we come into play with that, like even with the Porter Davis clients, is even if they've got half-built homes, it's more about getting the houses complete and finding a builder to carry that through. That's stressful. It definitely adds delays to a build. But it's not a terrible outcome. So when it comes to, even if a builder goes into liquidation, it's more about making sure that you've got the right terms in your contract to protect yourself. So for example, if you've signed a contract and you haven't got the insurance in place yet, you're at risk of losing the deposit. So as an example with a contract review, that's where you're protecting yourself as you go.
Yeah. And I'm curious, so what would you, how much would a contract review cost?
For us, we do it at $660.
Which is less than what a conveyancer would charge for a new house, a buy anyway. So so I mean, it's great value and just important to have that independent set of eyes to look through and see what you can do there. So so I guess so construction's looking different. It's mainly variable contracts. We're looking away from there's not many people as interested in building as there was before. Is that opening up some opportunities?
I think the opportunity is always there, to be honest, in any market. It's just, as I said, it's about the research and knowing what you're doing before you actually take each step. So I think even though builders, and there is a push for variable contracts, I personally think, obviously we work for the clients. I think there's still merit in pushing for a fixed price contract.
Okay.
I think the opportunity or that alignment of where it's reasonable for the builder, because the last thing, even though we work for the clients, the last thing we want to do is put the pressure on the builder and lock them into prices that they're not going to be able to complete a build. Even though we're in a position to help clients finish a build, alternate builders and so forth, I think it's really important to find that sweet spot where it's just fair and reasonable for everybody. And I think that's done with the fixed price contracts, but opportunity I think lies in the timing of when you're signing your build contracts.
And is it fair to say that the gap between when you sign the contract and when you start building, the longer that gap is, the more risk that you take on? Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, so the more risk someone takes on.
Yes,
depending on your contract, it might be you, the person who's building, or it could be the builder. And different builders have that different risk tolerance level. But for me, if your land is due to title soon, or say within 3 months, that's kind of a sweet spot for doing a build contract, because it takes out the guesswork on both ends and you can get that fair and reasonable line in the sand of where it's going to work for both parties.
Yeah, fantastic. So I guess... Okay, as we're working through this, if you do have any questions, again, make sure you put them in the comments. But I guess the question I've got is, where to from here? Because we still need, even with our current population, we still need probably 500,000 houses, because we've got a huge rental shortage, a huge dwelling shortage at the moment. We're obviously migrating, and whatever you think politically of that, I'm all for bringing in skilled migration if there's places to build it and places to house them. We don't have those places to house them yet. Like, when people going out of the industry suggest there might be new builders coming through, what's next for the building industry, and what do you think might change from both the builder and the client over the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years?
Yeah, so for clients, I feel there's going to be a big chunk of time where there's just that uncertainty and nervousness in building in general. For builders, I think they're really challenged, and I feel even from our experience, we're seeing builders that we would be working with a few years ago, we're seeing a different side of them now because they're exposed to different challenges.
Yep.
So I feel like we will continue to see builders fall.
Okay.
But then I feel like it will shine a light on the builders that, are that full circle, strong business, not just from a marketing or a cash flow point of view, but we're really getting exposed to seeing the ethics of builders as well right now. So those builders that have signed those fixed price contracts, quite a few builders that we're working with are continuing the builds at the fixed price with really low, if in some circumstances, no profit margin.
Okay.
But by doing the right thing, they are sustaining where they're in the sort of space.
Sure. Yep.
And then that, I believe, will come back to them.
Yeah.
Builders
okay,
that are doing the right thing, and that obviously cash flow comes into it.
Yep.
They can't continue to build for no profit
Yep.
continuously.
Yep.
But I think understanding that it is a potential, just a short-term sort of issue for builders. I think the good builders are the ones that are going to come out strong.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. So builders who are on a fixed term have got the option to complete the build. It might be at break even, hopefully not at a loss, but break even, and then just go, well, that's not great for them from a business perspective, but at least they can stay in, finish the build and move on to the next one, where hopefully these issues, especially with imports and so forth, and they can retain that profit margin. Is imports of materials getting better?
So we hear it differently. Obviously, we work with multiple builders. Different builders have a different perspective on it. From what I'm seeing overall, yes, I feel like it is easing. But again, it's our crystal ball. No one really knows where it's going to happen.
And is that, and I guess, is the easing more to do with more supply or less demand for building?
I think it's more access. Access to supply is probably what's improving. We still do have the home builder grants, the numbers in the system, but they are finishing up. And then on the other end, where we're still seeing, the slowdown of new sales, I think that all has a bit of a balance effect. Yeah,
fantastic. So I guess then, if someone is on the fence between buying and building at the moment, what would be your advice to them?
So even taking out the market conditions at the moment, considering a new home or an established home, bringing it back to basics, it's, what works for you personally. Obviously, timing is a big thing with a new home. What time frame are you looking at? If you're looking at an established property, obviously you're going to potentially get that a lot quicker. But then what compromises are you making for an established property right now? Is something that you're wanting on the market? Does it align with what you're wanting? Or are you compromising to get something now? From obviously new home point of view, it's the maintenance aspect that draws a lot of people in, and just that opportunity to make something your own. I don't think there is it's better now to buy established or it's better now to build a new home. It's always personal. And whether it's an established property or a new home, there's so many considerations on a personal level for people.
It all comes down to what trade-offs you're willing to make, because if you buy established, I've not met anyone that said this house was absolutely perfect. There's usually something that needs changing or needs updating. It could be as simple as a lick of paint or completely build a couple of rooms on, whatever it might be. Whereas if you go new, you can design it from scratch. Hopefully it's exactly what you want, but then we've all got a budget. We've all got to meet that budget. And now we've got this potentially variability in some certain contracts. There's a trade-off there as well. So does it feel like it feels like we had this COVID, dare I say, bubble when it comes to build. Are we coming back to a bit more normal, or getting close to a normal, what it was, say, 2018, 2019 with builds?
As in numbers of builds people are doing? Yeah, it's definitely sort of decreased from what it was with the home builder grant, that's for sure. It's hard to tell where we would have been without the home builder grant, and obviously COVID in play. My advice is just to, if you were wanting to build, I don't think there's enough happening in the market. Well, there's a lot happening in the market. There's definitely enough, but I don't think be too focused on the outside factors, because there's definitely a way to still build safely and build what you want. I think it's still a great time for that. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's good to hear. And we just talked about buy or build. So, that's fantastic. So if people do want to hear, I'll give you 5 minutes, Rebecca. If they want to hear more from you or how you can help, how can a build advocate, what services do you offer, and how can we get in touch with you?
5 minutes is generous. I said 100 miles an hour. But so some of our services are, we do quote review. So if you're, starting that process yourself, you might already have a couple of quotes from builders and just be a little unsure how to compare from one to the other. That's a service that we can support with. We do, as Chris touched on, contract reviews, just for that added peace of mind before you're signing, that you are completely aware of what you're signing and making sure that the contract aligns to your original quote and your expectations. We do building inspections, which is probably the most common support service that people are aware of, building inspections these days, especially with the panic in the industry. That's definitely an industry that has stepped up. A lot more people are getting private building inspectors. So we do that as a standalone service. A big piece of what we do is helping people find a builder that aligns to their needs. So that is just about understanding what a client, as touched on earlier, what a client is hoping to get from a new build, filling in those knowledge gaps and then supporting them sort of each step along the way. In finding a builder that is a good fit. And then that full project management piece, just taking away that stress of working with the builders directly. We basically treat the builders as if they're our own and manage all that communication the whole way through. So
I think in this world, anything you do to bring less stress and have someone on to hold you by the hand through that build process or finance process, whatever it might be, is definitely highly encouraged. And I know you're Geelong based, but if I was building in, say, or someone listening was building in Queensland, can you help out with that?
Yeah, so contract reviews, quote reviews, absolutely. Building inspections at this stage, not personally.
Sure.
But I think it's just about getting your team around you. So we can definitely advise you on the core team members, I'd say, that would make a build stress-free. So it might not necessarily be us, but we can certainly point you in the right direction in regards to what people you need to make sure you do have a stress-free build. And
that team is absolutely everything. So yeah, if you do want to get in touch, ninedots.com.au/get-in-touch, or if you want to speak to Marsty Money Now or Vista Financial Group, financial planning or mortgage broking, you go to mastermoneynow.com.au/get started and book in a chat there. So any final words, Rebecca?
Not really. Just as I've said, just make it personal. Don't be too influenced too much by the market, because it is forever changing. Just go back into what's important to you, whether it is established property, whether it's a new property, or whether it's not doing anything right now. Just really tap into what you're personally wanting and needing. Don't get too taken by the current of the market. Yeah, no, that's great advice. And just cut through. There's a lot of noise happening right now. Just someone who can cut through all that noise and show you step by step what you should be doing. And it is absolutely personal. It is completely right. What's good for me might not be good for you, and be very different to what you need as well. So no, that is fantastic. So thank you so much, Rebecca, for your time. Greatly appreciated. If you are watching, we do have our next webinar is going to be in 3 or 4 weeks. So 4 weeks, my apologies. I'm going to have a holiday in Perth between now and then, but catching up with Vista financial planner and social media finfluencer. You'll hate me for calling him that, but Patrick Chip, and he's going to be talking about a beginner's guide to starting an investment portfolio. So the link to that will be in the chat. Make sure you subscribe to that. We are limiting that to 30 people. That is going to be a great one, because despite everything that's going on, again, with all the noise, we're still finding people that want to have a chat about investing and starting investing as well. So, and also if you
do look around, particularly on our YouTube channel. We do have our previous chats. Our last chat was with mortgage broker Shane Maloney, how you can escape mortgage prison. So the replay of that is available as well. So thank you again for all those that have watched live. Thank you for those who are going to watch the replay. And again, thank you again, Rebecca, for your time and expertise. And wish you all the best. And we'll speak to you very, very soon.
Thanks.
See you later.